And welcome back to another episode of The Credit Authority. Again, I am your host, Rhonda Kulch, and on today's episode, we are speaking about everything real estate. And of course, you cannot speak about the real estate market without speaking to our next guest, James Manicone from JM2 Architecture, about what makes Long Island so beautiful, because it's somebody like you that designed it. So welcome, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Rhonda, it's a pleasure to be here.
So when we're speaking about the Long Island market, and most specifically, today's episode, we're speaking about real estate. You are involved in residential and commercial real estate.
Yes.
Is there one that you enjoy more than the other?
No, both are challenging. Both offer different parameters for design. You know, we've been in business, next March will be 10 years. And when we first started the firm, we were mostly commercial, probably 80-20 commercial to residential. Since the pandemic, we are 50-50. We saw a boom in residential clients last year, and that trend has continued, and more as we move past the pandemic. But the commercial aspect of what we do has always been very strong. I've always had a strong commercial background. My partner has always had a strong residential background. And together, we've melded that into a nice clientele portfolio for JM2. But, you know, our commercial, the pharmaceutical design that we do, Amneal Pharmaceuticals, Perfume Center of America, we've been involved with some large distribution facilities, manufacturing facilities, restaurants, shopping centers, which are kind of on the decline now, but we did a lot of that. Tenant build-outs, again, somewhat on the decline. Restaurants and the smaller poke bowl, creperies, these smaller restaurants are kind of the trend right now, and we're seeing a big increase in that. But, you know, for us, the beauty of what we do is we get to work with people. You know, it is a service-oriented business. And for us, that's what separates JM2 from everyone else, because we deliver an unparalleled level of service, and we always have, and that's something that we believe strongly in, because, you know, we're involved with our client and their journey in their business, continuing their success, and they put the utmost trust in us to make sure that that journey continues in the path that it has to that point. So we take that responsibility very seriously, and it just becomes a joy throughout the entire project.
So you touched on the fact that during the pandemic, your residential business has increased. We know from speaking with other guests that during the pandemic, the cost of material had increased. How did you handle that with your clients and keep them on budget? It
was very challenging. Last year, especially in April, May, when there was the construction moratorium. So it wasn't bad enough that everything was shutting down. Now the governor was mandating a construction moratorium, which meant you couldn't have more than one contractor, one sub on a job at any one time. I mean, that's just not feasible. So that shut down, in conjunction with the fact that steel companies, lumber companies, everybody ground their production to a halt, not thinking that anybody would be doing anything in construction. So the exact opposite happened. Everybody was staying home. They couldn't do anything but look inward toward their home. So for us, we actually put out a marketing campaign. We sent these large postcards to zip codes in our area, basically saying, are you working from home? Of course, we know you are.
Sure.
Would you be interested in a home remodel, a new office renovation, turning your garage, attic, basement into a home office? Because everybody was literally working at their kitchen counter. So we saw over the 6 to 8 month period a tremendous growth of residential renovations, which is what I spoke of earlier, and how the growth of residential in our firm since the pandemic, that particular moment was pivotal for us, because people were not spending money to travel. They really weren't buying anything because they couldn't go to stores, aside from buying stuff on Amazon. So really, they turned to their home. We designed a bunch of basement renovations. We did small additions. So to your point about lumber and materials, yes. because the exact opposite happened, all right, the lumber companies themselves, there was a shortage in production. So what material they did have, supply and demand. Demand was tremendous, supply was low, prices go up. We were seeing steel go up 11% every week. If you wanted a steel beam for your project, I couldn't tell you the price of that until it was being shipped to you. So this is an unprecedented time for us. I said last year on many a Zoom call that this was an evolutionary moment for us. As business owners, as a staff of 12, rethinking how we operate in a pandemic that nobody had ever seen before. How are we going to continue to succeed? How are we going to evolve? If we're not in the office, there was no guarantee that we would be back in the office. There was no discussion about a vaccine until it came out and whether that was going to be effective. So we really had to think how we were going to do business in the future. But fortunately, we've seen lumber prices start to come down as production has ramped back up again. And people have gone back into their offices, which is good.
Are you seeing a consistent growth in the residential now that people are going back to work? Or do you find that people are still skeptical about the work environment and they're continuing to want to be a little safer?
It's both. I wouldn't say it's all one or the other. I think a hybrid model is what we are seeing now. Companies are allowing employees to stay home 1 or 2 days. Employees now want to be home 1 or 2 days, whether it's they've reconnected with family and children and just they themselves got used to working at home. It now is a situation where it's a hybrid of both. And for us, we're back in the office full time. But if somebody wants to stay home and work from home, they can do it. My office, my partner and I had expanded our office for the second time in 2019. We now know that we probably don't have to expand again. We could do more with less. Yeah. And just because of the way things have gone. But I think the residential market is very strong right now. Interest rates are still really low. We both have good friends that are in the real estate market. Yeah. And the real estate agents, and prices are going for $40,000, $50,000, $100,000 over list. That trend is going to continue at least until next year. Maybe as interest rates start to go up. The rental market's still extremely strong. Landlords are still going to look for higher prices because they know the demand is really strong. I don't think people have fully gone back into the city. It's slowly starting to come back, but again, that's a trend that will take years to correct.
Do you think that by creating these new workspaces, that for somebody in the real estate market, do you think that adds value to the resale of the home?
Absolutely. Absolutely, because whether it's a full finished basement, we haven't done this many finished basements in a short period of time as we had in almost 10 years, because people now know that they will be working from home. So if you took an unfinished basement that was just really a cellar and put in a gym, there's a bar, there's an office, okay, there might be a bathroom or another bedroom or something like that, that only increases the value. They repainted, they may have put an addition on. So certainly the pandemic, for as crazy as it was, forced us to refocus on things that we really weren't paying too much attention to, and one of them is our homes. People did a ton of improvements. I have many contractors that I know, whether they're landscapers, fencing contractors, driveway contractors, just general contractors. They are all super busy right now because people have reinvested money that they weren't spending. They did well in the stock market. They continue to do well. They weren't spending that money elsewhere, so it's going right back to their home, which is why we're seeing the value of homes skyrocket the way they are. That and the fact, again, supply and demand. There's not a lot of inventory for the homes, and we'll see that continue.
I love it. Again, we are with our guest today, James Manicone, JM2 Architecture. James, if somebody wants to reach you, how can they get in touch with you?
Sure, you can contact me at 631-320-3305. You could also email me at james@jm2architecture.com.